lobby. If you can make your way in, we want to get started and be respectful of your time here. So it's good to see this crowd, and we're excited for you to see this building. That I know many of you have made comments about how much different it looks if this is your first time to be in here, and we're grateful for the job that MG&A, our contractors, and many of you know them as they've spoken on our behalf, and we'll be making a presentation tonight. But we are thankful for this time. For those of you that don't know, my name is David Melber. I serve with the North American Mission Board and with Sin Relief. And tonight, through this presentation, I just want to give just a few updates on kind of where we're at, and then also just kind of give you a flow of how this evening will go. After I make my remarks, Scott Gorosky with MG&A will come up and make a presentation with multiple options that we want your feedback on. And this is one of the things that we've learned from, I guess, over the last couple years on how can we help engage and provide an opportunity for you all, the community, to speak into at an early process. So, one, we are here tonight to talk about development options for what is the south side of this Rolling Street. I did want to just share a little bit. I know there's still a lot of discussion about the houses. We're not here to discuss the houses. We're here to discuss what might be options that would be a value add to this community. After Scott makes his presentation, we'll have time for questions, comments, for ideas that you want to put forth as something for us to consider to be a value add to this community. So we will finish sharply at 7:30 to honor the schedules of other commitments people may have in here. And again, we're thankful that you took the time to be here. We look forward to this discussion. I'm going to ask Scott Gorosky if he'd come up, and he'll start the presentation of some options that we have for you to consider.
Thank you, David. Can you hear me?
No.
It's on. It's a green light. So. Yep, there we go. Everybody here? Again, I'm Scott Gorosky with MG&A. And as David said, tonight we're going to talk about some concepts that we're working on for the development of our property that's on the south side of Rolling Street. And there will be a time at the end of the presentation for questions, comments, discussions. So if you could, just make mental notes or make some personal notes on any questions you might have, and we'll address those at that time. Our development objectives for the property is to create and develop recreation and park spaces for community use, to develop facilities that fit stylistically within the residential setting, to maximize green space opportunities, and also to maximize tree saves as applicable for each of the options we put up. We also want to minimize parking. We've heard that request really from the last few months loud and clear, so we've shown options to do that as well. Well, we're very aware of the zoning we're in. We're in an NR1 zoning, so the facilities that we are proposing would all require conditional use permits. That'd be part of the process that we would get to go through. We're aware of that process. This is the beginning part of us planning for that. So ball fields, soccer fields are allowed under the approval of the conditional use permit, as are playgrounds, restroom facilities, pavilions, gymnasium. So the things you will see tonight would be acquired through a conditional use permit, through the process. So we have multiple options, and I'll walk through the first one. We've got quite a few slides of each. Hopefully give you some very good perspectives of how these could look. And the facilities that I'm going to show you in option one, they hold true throughout all the options. So I'm not going to go back through each and every facility, but you'll see what I'm talking about as we talk about this. The park area is what we identified as the entire property south of Rolling there is highlighted. The playground facility located on the property, athletic fields, soccer fields, those are youth soccer fields. A gymnasium, covered pavilion, an area for outside, obviously. And our development, what I call attributes would be of this plan is that we're containing the development within our property lines. We're looking for the minimum allowable parking plan. And on any of these plans, we're not proposing any field lighting or any exterior lighting for the recreation space outside. So that's not part of any of these plans. How these plans would look, well, I'll show you some different views, okay? So this would be a view if you were standing beyond where we are, down the road and looking back toward this facility. You see the fields to the right, you see the gymnasium in the foreground, and the playground in front of that. Another view, this view would be kind of from Rogers Street looking back toward where we are now. You can see the sides of the gymnasium. And I want to point out a couple of design ideas and concepts in the gymnasium. The first thing is it's going to be very transparent, so you'll be able to see through the space. We don't anticipate having a large space for gathering as far as, this is not going to be like a high school gym to watch athletic events in. There will be minimal side views for people to watch basketball, but it's mainly an event center. It's not really built for, or planning to be built for hosting games and whatnot, official games, I guess. This is a view pretty much right down the chute here from above the site. As you can see there, we have retaining walls that we'll be putting in to help with the tree save. This is looking back down Hill Street. You also notice here we've laid into our plan, ponds plan that the city has approved and is being currently drawn. So the curbs on Roland, the traffic softening, and even the Hill Street, this is all directly from ponds work, and we've collaborated with them on our ideas, which they're in favor of. Another view from would be really on top of the ministry center. Ground level view. You'll notice that we're using the same materials on the gymnasium we're using on the change we made to the ministry center. So stone or natural material at the bottom, a residential type siding above that with a residential roof style. You see the structure there would be wood or clad in wood, again to give a residential feel to the building facility. We're showing the proper height for the zoning requirements and also the setbacks. Another view. Option 2 we looked at would be considered a little bit out of the box, in that we looked at the site and wanted to maximize how we possibly can maximize green space, especially our tree save on the northern portion where we intersect Roland right there. So we looked at a plan that abandons Hill Street. And in doing so, we moved our facility from where it originally was planned over on top of where Hill Street is now. So what that obviously does is it puts our facility on top of what's existing right now, which is asphalt. Okay? So that allows us to capture more green space. As you can see, in this plan, we've actually not accounted for any additional parking. So if this plan were to move forward, we'd have to get a variance, but we've not shown any additional parking for this plan. This is the maximum, this one in the next version maximize the site as far as green space. You can see that pretty evidently. The facilities are the same. We have a playground, gymnasium, an athletic field. We're not showing additional parking here. If you notice in the first option, I should have pointed that out, we had parking off of Rogers Street to meet the required parking. We are showing shared parking, so we're de-evaluating that as much as we can. I think it's an additional 25 spots or so for this facility. But because the way Hill Street is being subdivided to that island now, that's where they're only access to parking. In this plan, we're not showing that parking. You can see the great amount of tree save that we're able to maintain with this plan by just moving this building onto Hill Street. We're able to keep that big swath of trees, like I said, north and also south, west as well. Here's some views of this site plan, which really, the building is exactly the same as far as the architecture, nothing's changed there, just a different layout of the field space and the parking. Option 3, our focus there was, again, we abandoned Hill Street for the same reason, same rationale. We included in this a little bit of a shift in that we rotated the building 90 degrees, the gymnasium 90 degrees, which allowed us to put in an internal loop of parking that allows us to have a nice opportunity for drop-off pickup right within our parking area, which you feel like would be a good option for traffic as well. We are showing additional spots along Roger Street. You can see those right there. Again, that's something that with approval, we could eliminate those. You also see this plan, we're able to basically have the same amount of tree saved. One great thing about this plan is the pavilion space, which is the northern part of the gymnasium, that little roof section you see there, is larger, and we really feel like that could be a really great space that overlooks that playground and is back toward the ministry center. So this is a plan we're very fond of. Here are some views of that. You can see the pavilion I'm speaking of, that space, how it's able to expand. You can also see the retaining walls that have been put in place. They're fairly low walls, but they will help us maintain those existing trees. A lot of those existing trees along Roller. You can see there the loop we discussed, talked about. Again, that's just about where Hill Street is, where about the second half of that loop is. Another view back toward the facility. Again, we're trying to be contiguous with the architecture, to try to tie everything in to make it look like it's all part of obviously a planned development, and get a really good picture of the entire site with the ministry housing up there at the top left. You can kind of see our tie-in there with the residential look and feel. Another view that really shows that parking lot well. You also notice we have sidewalks transversing not only around the site, but actually through the site, north and south as well, so easily accessible and easy to move through these spaces. Here's a good shot of the playground and the pavilion area. And then the last option we have is option 4, and option 4 would be if the city council decided that the previous 3 options or other options were not suitable, then in an effort to regain our investment, we would subdivide the property as it is allowed for in the current zoning, create lots, build spec houses, sell those spec houses to get our return, and that would be the end of the development.
Let's do that.
We feel like we can get 6, maybe 8 houses left. We'll have to see how that happens. But that would be the option 4. So those are the options. And
No concepts on it though.
if you've got questions now, it's time, then I can back the presentation up if you have questions.
Yeah, so during this time, this is where we want to hear your thoughts on what could take place there. You know, again, you're not seeing anything that we're maintaining the houses. So discussion about needing to maintain the house, if that is your only position, I would just ask that would get tabled, or you could come up and say, I think the houses should stay, but we're not going to engage in a back and forth about the houses. This plan, these plans, these options were developed from, really rooted in the 2040 Clarkston plan. And you see everything that's up there as far as the space, the green space, encouraging walking, biking, having things for the community to be involved with. This really hit the 3 main components of the recommendations out of that 2040 plan. So as you look at this, as you have ideas about what would be a value add to this community, we would love to hear. There's a microphone up here, and just yelling out, not everybody can necessarily hear. So if you want to come up and make your comments, and we want to keep them quick to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go first because then I'm going to leave. First of all, I think y'all have done an amazing amount of work on these options, given that it was only weeks ago that you stood before council and declared repeatedly that you had no idea what you were gonna do here.
Thank you.
So y'all must have been up all night and all day since that time to get this happening.
You can better believe that's happening.
Let me also say this. When your PUD was to be voted on in February, the mayor asked you, Mr. Melber, to seek a deferral. The mayor and his girlfriend on council, Andrea Cerrone, were not going to be able to be at the meeting where this would have been voted on, and it would have failed. Did you know that the mayor was not going to be at that meeting when you sought the deferral? Just answer the question.
We're not here to discuss that.
Oh, no, we're not.
And I'm not going to discuss it.
No, you won't.
If that's all you have to say, I would
That's
just
all I
ask you
have to
to
say.
yield your
I'll
time
be
to somebody
leaving,
else.
but everybody knows what happened. Mayor asked you to defer because it would fail, because he was not going to be at the meeting.
Thank you for your
deferred
comment, Susan. If
under
somebody else
false consequences, and you got it approved.
If somebody else wants
Good
to.
night.
Thank you.
Okay, so here I am. Okay, I have a loud voice, I do birthday parties. I'm Renita Knight, and I live on the not part of development side. If you go with 1, 2, or 3 plan, you had a little retaining wall, it kind of stopped, you know, at the front. What is going to be in between my house and the soccer field? I mean, my fence is currently there. I have, you know, the complete fence from my, you know, I have dogs in the backyard. When the church was had the daycare over at the I'm nervous. When the church had the daycare over at the story house, I always had to go outside and tell the children not to stick their fingers there, because I have a dachshund. He's a biter, and he's crazy. Well, I'm not going to say that word. He's crazy. So I constantly had to, so you know, I let my dogs out, there's continuous barking. So that's one question. What's going to be between my house and the soccer field if you go with plan 1, 2, or 3?
Okay. We're certainly going to have landscaping in there, and also.
I mean, fence-wise or barrier.
If the retaining wall is above 24 inches, we'll have to have a fence on that retaining wall.
I mean, I have a current fence.
We will have to add one on our property.
Okay, would it be see-through or not see-through?
We haven't got that far.
I wouldn't want it, well, I mean, it's kind of ugly if you can't see through it. I hate those kind of fences. Okay, the second question is, why are you guys moving so forward when you've not cleared any of the land, you've not put in any parking lots, you've not delivered not one stick of building material? And, I mean, when is it going to be done? Is it going to be done like this year?
Well, this is meant to be a session where we can hear your ideas about what could be developed over there. We want to present some concepts of what have been developed very rapidly in the last few weeks. And we want to get the community's ideas and thoughts about what you all would see would be a value add there.
Well, I mean, it affects Clarkston, it affects all these people in the room, but I mean, it greatly affects me because I'm the house on the end, and it affects the people who live on Rogers and this and that. And I'm wondering whether, you know, if you go with this plan, I don't know what those houses would sell for, I don't know how big the houses would be, I don't know any of that, I don't know who would buy them, I don't care who buys them, I have no problem with anybody living next to me. But my question is, if you go with 1, 2, or 3 option, is that going to raise the value of my home and the people's homes on Rogers, or is it going to lower the value? The church offered me, you know, money for my house, but it wasn't enough to replace it. I'm not in a position financially to buy a house with what I was offered. You know, and then I just hated the fact they were going to demolish a 1924 perfectly fine, beautiful, one of the prettiest houses in Clarkston, and I think most people would agree with me. I've been there 19 years. When I moved there, I never intended to move. I'm 61 years old. And I mean, I'm greatly affected by this. So what do you have to say about that?
We want to be the best neighbor that we can be.
Okay,
And the exact details, as Scott has shared about, we want to do everything we can to minimize impact on your lot.
mm-hmm,
And as far as the details, we presented concepts here that would have to go through a lot of work to be approved, so we can't say specifics today for something that is a hypothetical for the future.
right, but I'm saying, is that gonna raise the price of my home? I mean, I don't see any average Joe, unless they're a part of this, you guys group, and that would wanna live in the house. I mean, especially if it's the other three options. I mean, it's gonna take us, and I may live there for the rest of my life. I may wanna sell the house in 3 to 5 years.
I would love to be able to say, but I don't think there's anyone in this room that would be qualified to speculate about what this may or may not do to the value of a home. I just can't do that.
I don't really think it's gonna raise the value at all. And you guys paid a lot of money for the other 2 lots, and you couldn't even give me enough money to replace my home and be comfortable.
Right.
That's the sad part.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being pushed out and squeezed out, and I don't like that. I'm a member of this church. I currently don't attend here very often. I go to another church, but my letter is still here. I still love these people. Charles is my deacon. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm not surprised. I knew because they weren't maintaining the houses. The gutters were falling off of them. I knew last year when they turned off all the power. You can't have a home. It's probably full of spider webs. It's just, I knew y'all were going to tear them down. It was just a matter of when. That was the thing.
That's it.
And so that's all I have to say, I guess.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other thoughts or ideas about what you would like to see in this community?
First off, I'd just like to say what you want to do, I think is good. But I have a house that borders Rogers Street. And as I've mentioned before, my major concern is the traffic. I noticed that in 2 of the 3 first options, that you had a nice border along Rogers Street. But it seemed like one of the options, it neglected the border. I don't know if that's because you wanted additional parking spaces or what. But if this is going to go through, I would like to see some nice border. I'd like to go in my backyard and not see a parking lot. Okay. Another concern I have is the soccer fields, the playgrounds. Do you anticipate lighting those?
No. Maybe not, because they're like this.
But, the concern with the diagonal parking on Rogers Street, that's a small street. Traffic is pretty bad as it is. People are going to be backing out into that because I assume if we're going to abandon Hill Street, the stop sign will go away right there. And, it's going to be dangerous. And then the people that live on the other side of Rogers Street, it's just going to be a little bit harder for them to back out of their driveways because of the traffic is going to be dumped onto Rogers Street because that's the only place for it to go. And again, traffic is my major concern.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm John Cargill. I live on Rogers Street, facing the proposed gymnasium. Here's the plus. You put in sidewalks. Whoa! We need sidewalks, even if you don't do any of the rest of it, which I highly recommend. Sidewalks. Option 1, didn't remember a good look at it. It didn't have very many trees. The parking on Rogers Street is a disaster. That street's already a disaster. It's gonna have more traffic because there won't be traffic on Roland, so everybody's gonna cut through Rogers now. Having angled parking there is just an accident waiting to happen. It's the worst thing you could possibly do. Plans 2 and 3 are essentially very similar to what you proposed originally,
That's right.
which is what enraged the entire neighborhood.
The soccer fields.
Really bad parts are taking over Hill Street and putting a gym right in front of where I live, blocking the view. Just completely changes the nature of the neighborhood, and I don't think for the better. I don't know if you ever took my advice and went down to Arizona Avenue off of DeKalb Avenue in Atlanta to see what the impact of the soccer fields there are, but they have massive traffic jams whenever their kids are playing soccer. And I think you should take a look, drive by there one Saturday afternoon and see how you think it works out. The neighbors there don't like it. Option 4 seems most feasible, and that's, of all the options, it's preferable. Of course, the other option that's preferable is to leave the houses as they are. But as you said, you went ahead and bought this property just because it was available and you thought you could do something with it. So now you have to do something with it. I don't know, maybe you could sell it just the way it is.
Thank you.
So, it's a long story as to how we got here. I know you all have been at this church for a long time and done a lot of good things in the community. And it's funny to see us come up here as the people of the city that are objecting to this move to tear down the old farmhouse. It is sort of a cornerstone, centerpiece of our community. Has historic value for us. It creates an ambiance, the trees and all that. And we've always liked that house. We want to keep it. It's in our 2040 plan. We talk about the 2040 plan having activity fields, paths, playgrounds, things for us to do, active things, so that we can reach your age. I see some of you are, a little older than most of us, and we appreciate your interest. The whole time you've been going to church here, did you ever think that that would be a playground and a gymnasium? I mean, this is a new idea that just came about. And it's sort of new for us too. We have an administration right now that is, as you may have seen other administrations or other people that were grandstanding for themselves and trying to do things. And so they've been meeting with this group that came in and brought your church and has made what I think is they've betrayed the community. They have had some meetings, they've talked to these guys and said, whatever you want to do, as long as you can get soccer fields here, or whatever the conversation was. I have no idea. This is behind closed doors. These gentlemen might be able to fill you in more depth. But to promote this type of activity in our downtown, like the gentleman who was up here a minute ago talked about, over on Arizona Avenue, we've got these soccer fields. This is not the place for big sports competitions. There was going to be an arena built just over in DeKalb County that turns out is on top of a landfill, and so they couldn't do it. Soccer's a big thing. The mayor's been putting things out in different publications and whatnot about the old people here. I'm old. I'm one of the targets because I'm old and white, and we don't want people of other color coming here and playing the games that we never played when we were kids. Did you all ever play soccer when you were little?
No.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
It was new when I was young. I did have an opportunity to do it, and I didn't do it. But anyway, that's another story. Anyway, they came in with some false hopes and false promises, and the administration here feels like they can do whatever they want to, regardless of how we feel. And if you've driven through the neighborhood, you know the fabric of our neighborhood, the old houses. You see a lot of signs out there, save our neighborhoods. And that's something that this administration is not interested in. Right now, they are working to rezone the city to reduce all our lot sizes. And we're pretty happy with our houses as they are. But this is another aspect of what we have going on here in the city, besides this little project that you have for the soccer fields. And so I feel like you've been led into this. You come out, you see a crazy woman come up here that's really disgruntled about this whole thing. It's very frustrating for most of us. You got one of your parishioners that lives on the corner. She's disappointed in how she's been treated by these guys that came in here and took over your church. They've already torn down your church. When I was on city council, my understanding was they're going to renovate the church. That's not what happened. They did a nice renovation of this building, which is beautiful. I think it's great that they've done this. But as far as the character of our city, the fabric of our community, the real feel of Clarkston, we've been working towards a community that has walkability and bikeability. You know, we have a lot of refugees here. They don't come here with cars. So we want to make this place safe for people. We've got this road right here, Roland Street, that has been a bike path for years, and everybody knows that. And it's dangerous because this is mixed with the traffic. But we're planning to make some traffic calming structures to slow people down and take into consideration that there are pedestrians here, there are people on bicycles here. And potentially, there's going to be kids from the playground here running back and forth across the street. I'd like to not see the playground here because we do like the old house. And the city is moving to establish a neighborhood in the face of this project, in the face of the city council's attitude right now, that they just want to let people tear down whatever they want to. And so we're in the process of establishing a historic district. And it starts with our NR1, which is what that house right there is right now, is NR1. We want to keep it that way. We like it. Like I say, the 2040 plan, it's a picture in our plan. It talks about the historic preservation in that plan, the historic neighborhood. We just never thought we had to establish something like that and have credentials that actually said this is a historic neighborhood. But now we're forced into it. And so we're moving in that direction. They're moving in the direction to tear it down. Might be a fight to the finish, but we hope that we can preserve our neighborhood. We hope that everybody has a happy development here with what you plan on doing on this side of the street, as we've had zoned forever, as you all developed and bought these other houses along here. That was within the zoning for this area. And the NR1, those are our neighborhoods, like you have your neighborhoods. I'm sure you all live somewhere, not in Clarkston, I take it, but you live somewhere. And you probably want to preserve what your house is, and what your neighborhood is, and the flavor of it, and the trees. And I appreciate all you've done for your church and coming here for humanity and being the people that you are. But I don't see this group here that came in and bought your church as approaching the holistic fabric of our community. They didn't come here and say, we want to work together with you and figure out ways to do this. They met with our administration, the young kids on the block that want to tear everything down, and that's where we're going. So hopefully we can stop that and slow things down. And thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Bentley, and I just was hoping to get the chance to share a little bit of my perspective. So I am a Clarkston City resident. I live off of Market Street in the neighborhood called Walk. We recently became residents this year. I'm also the English as a second language physical science teacher at Clarkston High School. So I spend a lot of time with the students that live in this community every day. We have also lived in Christopher Woods apartments for a year and a half. I have a young child who was born and lived in those apartments, so I feel like I have a pretty good perspective of what it's like to have children in this community. So I just wanted to offer my perspective on these plans. First of all, I do agree with you guys about the parking on Rolling Street because of my baby. I don't want a lot of traffic because we do walk around this area. Also, my husband mentioned that the playground in one of the plans seems more centralized in the middle, which seems a little bit safer. So we like that idea instead of it being right up against the road. I will say something about the soccer fields as just kind of an advocate for the high school students in this community. I don't think that there are a lot of locations in Clarkston city limits for them to go. They have perhaps Milan Park to go play, but those are already very busy and active all the time. It's also a pretty far walk. A lot of students spend a lot of time at home in their rooms on their phones, not really doing a lot of stuff that's good for them or the community. They're not actively engaged in anything that's helping the kids rise up and be the next generation that is going to carry this community if they stay within it. And so as being a member of the church, which I am, my perspective on it has been, while I do agree that that house is gorgeous, I love that house and I kind of want them to give me the plants if something happens. But having lived in Christopher Woods, it's very dangerous. There's drug use, there's gangs. The kids that live in that apartment have fallen trees from the hurricane that was 2 years ago that are still down. They have nowhere safe to play unless their parents can walk all the way to Milan Park. There are no access to community facilities like this where they live. They've filled in all the pools. So I guess my thought is that while I do understand that we have a very beautiful corner of Clarkston on this side, the other side is not beautiful, and they don't have anywhere to go. And I would imagine that the idea for this proposal is to provide a place for them to go that's safe and that can build their character and that can give them positive people around them to help bring them up. So I guess which one is this? This is option, is that where the playground's in the middle?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would say as a resident here, I like the option with the playground in the middle where it's just a little bit away from the road, as well as the parking not being on, is it Rogers? Rogers Street. Because I do agree. And as some of you have mentioned, this is a walking community for most of the refugees that are here, as well as the students. They don't really have their own cars. So to my perspective, I don't think parking is a premium. That we have to have tons of parking. I think that most people would be walking if they were going to use these facilities anyway. So, thank you.
Other thoughts or ideas?
Yeah, I'm gonna say something. I gotta say something. I definitely gotta say something.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I appreciate you first having this meeting for us and allowing the community to have an opportunity to voice their thoughts about the options that you are going to present or want to pursue. So I want to make sure that I'm clear about that. My option would be option 4. And I'm going to tell you why I would like to see option 4 out of all of the options that were presented. Number 1 is when the city actually goes through the plan and develops Roland Street. In terms of traffic, it would be essential to have Hill Street available because while you have opened your community and opened your doors, this is still private property. And everything related to what you do with this church is private property. And so how you control it and what you do with it is still, number 1, private property. And so from an option perspective in terms of the citizens being able to utilize the path and having an option for where they can park, as it stands right now, Hill Street is the only street that is available for people to park their cars and not utilize your parking lot, While you may have the option to allow us to do that, again, it is still private property. And so with that in mind, I'm keeping and thinking about the park and everything else in terms of what you presented in options 1 and 3. My concern is when you mentioned the playground, is that going to be utilized in terms of daycare with the church? Is that something that you're going to utilize? Daycare and then have potentially the kids from the daycare go over to the playground?
It would be no different than the park that we had here on this property where students that are here during the day would go out and have outdoor recreation on our property.
Okay, and so those are kind of questions that I have concern in terms of traffic, having the kids going across a street to utilize the playground. That's one concern. The other concern is I've talked to both the neighbors who are there with the undeveloped property when it was utilizing the White House as a daycare. And one of their biggest concerns was the noise from where the kids were using the playground, the backyard as their playground. The other was the soccer fields in terms of the balls hitting their homes. So in terms of what you can do to protect the existing residents and making sure that from utilizing the soccer field or any type of play area, they need to be protected in terms of their homes and the value of their homes and what is there for their homes. So that's a big concern because, again, from an experimental perspective, when you had the option to have kids in that background, they were the ones who were suffering in terms of your dog being bothered. There were balls and frisbees on top of the house where the State Farm business was. And so over time, we need to think about that because, again, we're going to live here. We're going to be here. How then are we going to be good stewards of what you already have? And how are you going to be good stewards in terms of what you're trying to do within the community? And so that's kind of my concern and why I say option 4 is a better option, because it keeps to the flavor of keeping this a residential area. It allows the community to have that buffer between the activities that you're going to have in terms of the proposed plans that you're going to develop anyway. And so having those broken into 6 lots or 8 lots or whatever would be more beneficial in terms of the community as a whole. And I understand the need to have soccer fields for the kids because, again, I don't mind this devil's workshop, and I get that. But not everywhere is the best place to have certain things. And so I understand the balance between what you're wanting to do in terms of providing additional services for our community, and I think that's great. And that was kind of one of those, I told you so, I knew somewhere along the line we were going to talk about a gym and a playground. Because again, you can't develop a church and not include a gym or a playground. And so I've always been preaching, some point I'm going to see a gym and a playground. So overall, what is important, I think, from keeping the flavor of the community, making sure in terms of transportation and access to transportation for everyone, because again, this is private property. As much as you want to say you're going to be here for the community, you control what happens on that soccer field. You control what happens with that playground, and you control what happens with that parking lot. And so as much as we talk back and forth, at the end of the day, if you said you don't want us to utilize it anymore, we wouldn't be able to utilize it. And so I think that's something to keep in mind from a city perspective. How are we going to have public access for our kids to make sure if we need to expand whatever we need to do? But again, option 4 would be the best option.
Thanks.
My name is Emmanuel Ransom. I'm the former mayor, and I am very disappointed in your group right now. because I was raised in church. My father was a minister, my grandfather, my twin, and they wanted me to be a minister, and I'm glad I didn't. But anyway, you could have saved yourself a lot of money if you had just listened to the public. When these people came out to express their thoughts and desires about that R1 area, you weren't listening to them because you spent a lot of money on all these concepts. And the last concept you come up with is the concept that we've been talking about all along. But you don't have that in mind. You have all of this other development. And I think it's wrong for the church, which is the fiber of a community. The church pulls the community together, but it looks like it's trying to separate us. You know, we know that you have a large investment in that area. I don't fault you for not getting what you need in return, but you haven't listened to the residents. I mean, even though if you're not going to keep those two beautiful historic homes, I agree with Beverly. Your last option is the best option for you to stay in good with this community. And I hope you listen to us, you know, and I hope you get your investment back. If it was my will and thought, I would give you the money back to get the property, but I don't have it. But you need to listen to us. We came to Clarkston because it had a flavor. I came here in '63, and what was it? It was the flavor of this community, the ambiance. I've been to this church when it was just Clarkston Baptist, you know, and it was wonderful. The church had strength in the community, it had a voice in the community, it listened to the people in the community, it helped the people in the community. But you came in with your organization, you bought the church, you rented this beautiful building, and you come up with all these concepts to build something on properties that's yours, but it's not satisfactory to the community. Because as far as I'm concerned, I want that property to stay R1. And I think you guys should too. And I think, you know, there's a lot of ways you can make your money back. You can put 6 houses up on there and make a bed and breakfast out of a couple of them, or whole weddings in them, you know. But if you're still keeping that flavor of the community, and that's what we want. We don't want all this mega construction. I mean, not in the residential area. And that area would be, like Beverly said, the buffer to the residential into your light commercial. So please, for God's sake, listen to us for a change. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add a comment if I could, John Kirkle again. And I guess what I really disagree with is the process that's taken place here. Because just a few months ago when this original planned unit development was approved by the city council, well, the idea of a planned unit development is to be able to plan the whole unit. You're given certain concessions, the developer is given concessions in order to not plan something for each individual lot, but to be able to put together a plan for a whole complex. And at the time, those 2 houses were sitting there, NAMB / Southern Baptist Convention / International Bible Church already owned it. They knew that eventually they were going to do something with it. They didn't tell us what they wanted to do with it, but it was obvious that something would have to happen with that property. So just a few short months ago, they said, well, there's no need to include that in this planned unit development. Well, there was. Because this plan might have been able to be optimized better. For example, if you planned the whole unit, including those spaces together, it might have given you more flexibility for those lots to put something more amenable. For example, you wouldn't have to put the gym right in front of somebody's house. you could put it over next to a busy street. But now, they want to apply for a second planned unit development. And I think that's an abuse of the system, frankly, because you knew that this was going to be part of your development from the beginning. So why could you not make it a part of your original plan? Again, I see no reason why the city council should have it in their heart to come back and approve a second planned unit development.
We're not applying for second flood. We're applying for conditional use permit.
A conditional use permit. Okay, I'm sorry. I see no reason why they should approve that either. Because it was even you gentlemen who said, we don't expect to ask for a change in zoning from NR1.
And we're not.
Well, I believe you are, by asking for a change.
We need to change the zoning.
So that option 4 is the only one that really conforms to a residential format. But I highly object to the fact that this wasn't included in the original plan as it should have been. As you already own the property, you knew it was going to be part of the development, and yet you didn't go forward with informing the community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thoughts or ideas?
I did not intend to say anything today. I'm a little nervous. So I've been in Clarkston for about 6 years. I consider myself a newbie for sure. Like I said, I didn't plan on saying anything, so my thoughts are not super solid. I would vote Plan 4.5. I don't know if y'all have ever considered flipping houses. You can get a pretty good investment return on flipped houses and still keep really beautiful houses in the community. Something else that kind of hit me was the non-lit playground and soccer field. I get why it's not lit, because neighbors would complain about the light, totally get that. Just knowing the kids of this community, an unlit soccer field and playground kind of invites a lot of vandalism and loitering and all sorts of other things. I just bought a house one street over from here, and doesn't sound like something I would enjoy, having lots and lots of kids in the nighttime around in an unlit area. But when I first heard about this, it was I was visiting the church actually, and I think when it was presented, it was that NAM was going to buy the church and rebuild it and sell it back to for $1 or something. That's how I understood the plan. So I'm like shocked at the enormity of what you guys have planned. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. Like, I'd heard there were going to be soccer fields, but this is like a giant campus. And I just, like the mayor was saying, like there's a feeling to this community. And there's it's really special. And this is enormous. So anyway, I would just like to put in my 2 cents and say, I appreciate the heart behind it. Like, I understand you guys have good hearts and your hearts are good and you want to do something good. I feel like it just kind of got blown way out of proportion. But anyway, I would suggest flipping the houses. Somebody would definitely love to live in those. So anyway.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, how you guys doing? My name is Gennaro, and I'm soft. And as someone who was raised in Clarkston, I think it would be a pretty good idea to have a soccer field and a basketball gym. This actually used to be our basketball gym, and on Friday nights we used to have up to 100 different guys playing basketball in here, and that's something that a lot of people has asked me about, and something that we truly do miss, me and myself. So I think it'd be a really good idea to have the gym and soccer field.
As a fellow youth myself, I think that it is a very good idea that we have a soccer field and a gym, because other places like in the community, it's kind of hard to find a place to actually play, and like we just, as youth, come to a place and just play together, and just hang out and stay away from bad things like stay out of trouble. It's just overall, I think it's a very good idea, and the gym would be a great idea. Play basketball, just be able to hang out as a community together. I just think it's a great idea.
Thank you, guys.
I'm Daniel Pope. I live on College Avenue, just a block over. I've tried to be as open-minded as I can about this whole project. I'm new to the community, so I've gone to pretty much every city council meeting and all the surrounding meetings involving this planning. I support this church and their vision for what they're going to do. So I'm trying to have an unbiased, as much as I can, perspective. And to me, as a resident, I would love to see those homes stay. I do believe that they're a valuable asset to the community in a way that not many houses in this area are. But I would say also, I don't know that we as a collective have really given it the best effort to truly optimize the potential of either the space on Roland or the space in between Roland and Rogers. If I had to vote right now, option 4 or option 1, but even option 1 is pictured here, I don't see personally the necessity of 2 soccer fields, and the smaller field could even fit, based on this photo, down below the houses on Roland. And so, to me, it seems like there could be more of a compromise to, if the houses are to go, how could we make this space truly valuable, not just to the youth of the community, which I absolutely value and want to support, but to the elderly neighbors that maybe don't care about soccer fields or gymnasiums, but could benefit from maybe a community garden that would provide more privacy and workshops to the neighbors that are directly involved. So, I don't know how much more conversation there will be about this and the realistic boundaries, but I do feel like there are needs and desires within the community that maybe aren't coming up as often in these discussions, and could have equal spiritual value, if nothing else, than some of these ideas. So, again, thank you for all the effort you put in. Thank you for listening and adjusting your plans so often. But I would hope that we can continue to have a conversation to really make this a valuable space. Because personally, I want to preserve the neighborhood. I like the idea of more homes if that is to happen. But I also honestly got kind of excited about if the houses were to be preserved, like how could they be used in a way that invites neighbors to come? How can it be more of a social space? Because honestly, it's been difficult to really engage with my neighbors in a meaningful way. And that property is just a blank invitation to really be creative on how to do that. So again, I thank you for your time and would love to have a further conversation if that's allowable.
Thank you. We've got about 15 more minutes before we want to wrap up, so if there's others.
Hi, I'm Paulette Bowman, and I really hadn't planned on saying anything, and I'm real pleased with the outreach to the community. I think it's good to have the conversations. I certainly can feel the concerns of the specific neighbors. Way back when, just to give you some background, my family moved here in 1971. 1 month later, I moved to the University of Arizona, so I come back and forth over the years to be with my family on visits. And in the last 2 years, I've been coming quite often. So one perspective I have is as a new homeowner in Tucson, Arizona. I bought my home and had a really good deal on my home, and I love my home. I'm still there. Bought it in 1971, and I'm still there. But when I bought it, within the year, I didn't know it, but the people who were selling it sold it because the big equivalent to your Kroger's was moving in my backyard. And I was furious. I was so upset. I thought I had been so betrayed by the real estate agents, you know, like buying a car that you didn't know had been gone through a flood or something, and you had the rust on it. You didn't know that. I was so upset. I can tell you sometimes things work out in a way you're not expecting. I absolutely love having Kroger's in my backyard, and I hadn't ever expected for that to happen. So sometimes I think maybe there's a leap of faith that you have to think about. I've loved this church. I'm not a member, but I feel like I am. I've been coming to this church every time I come to visit my family. And like I said, in the last couple of years, quite a bit more so. So I feel like I know the church through all the different pastors, through all of the evolving of how the church has, in my opinion, become so much more inclusive of the community, so much more open to all of the changes that are happening in Clarkston. The one thing that I do know is that this church won't let the community down in terms of making sure that the kids are safe that are there on the grounds, that the community members will always be welcome, that they would never be shut out from using the property. I do have that strong belief and that strong faith in this church as a community, because they've always shown that to me as a non-member, as somebody who can say that, you know, I don't have the same vision or buy-in that the members have, but I do believe in the people that are in this church, and they are there for the community, and the idea is to support the community, and it is hard on those residents that are especially impacted, and whatever that you guys can do to listen to the specific needs of the community members. I don't see that it makes any sense at all, in my opinion, if the idea is that the historical value is so important, why would option 4 even make sense? So anybody who's saying, oh, those are historical homes, then for them to want to go ahead and tear down the homes, that to me doesn't even make sense. But of the options that have been provided, I would say listening to those that think it makes the children safer, it makes the neighborhood more at peace to the degree that they can be. And then I think sometimes change is good, and you just don't know it until you've had it presented to you and you've had to deal with it. And then all of a sudden you can find out how to make it good. You can figure out what you need to do, and you can certainly work together. And the people of this church will make sure that everyone is treated with respect, and the kids will be safe, and the kids will have a place to be safe in. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sam. I kind of didn't want to speak, but I saw some of the young people speaking, so I was like, I think I need to speak up. My name is Sam. I live in English Oak here in Clarkston, so I think I have something to say. So when they were talking about the need for the soccer field, kind of like feel like to share a little bit of my story. So I came here as a refugee, and when I came here, we kind of, as a refugee people, we kind of had an expectation that we will find a community where we can get out of our home and meet our new people. But sadly, that's not the reality here in America. Everybody's busy, and they do their work, and there is so many things happening, and so many time. I remember for 3 to 5 months, while I was new here in America, I was just sitting inside the home and doing the thing that I should not be doing. I wanted to get out, but I just didn't know what to do when I get out. And I'm going to be honest with you that I've been working among young people for the past 8 years, that some of you might not like it, but you like it or not, the refugee people are here, and I think we need to see them as our neighbor and kind of see what are the needs there. And I can say that with young people there, the biggest need right now I can say is for them to be outside. And let's be honest that young people, these youth are the future of this community. And I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have so many young people here speaking up for the Clarkston, because again, they are the future leader of this community. We just have to accept that reality. And again, this is my first time here, and I just hope that in future when we have this kind of place where we can share our opinion for our Clarkston, because this Clarkston is my new home. I just hope that we can have more young people here who can speak out, because for this community, these young people are the future, and I think we need to be able to kind of leave a little bit our comfort zone and sacrifice a little bit to invest for the future. And for me, when I think about that, to having this kind of places and like a place where young people can go outside, not only in their home playing video games, it's going to be good for your children, for their children. I just hope that we as a community can be able to kind of leave our comfort a little bit and sacrifice a little bit to invest for the young people. And I pray that we'll have more young people here again. So thank you all so much. Thank you for everything that you guys did. And yeah, it just felt like I had to share this one because I came here as a refugee, and now this is my new home, this is my new city, and I'm going to do everything I can to fight for the better of this city. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The soccer field over at the community center is underutilized, which would be closer to Christopher Woods. The basketball court over at the First Baptist Church, they have some excellent programs over there. It's closer to English Oaks. Sorry that this gym is not here for some of the kids. And I'm afraid that what was said earlier was that this was private property. So I wonder what your programs are going to be for the kids. Are they going to be members of the church? Is it going to be open to the community? Because this is not a city park. It's not a city facility. So what do you plan on, how are you going to develop your outreach into the community?
Be the same way that it's always been here. It's been open. You got just, yeah, go ahead.
How are you all doing? So just to give a little bit of background to me, I'm somewhat new to Clarkston. I've only lived here 17 months. I'm a physician. One of the reasons I came here was because of what myself and Dr. Contino over here and some others wanted to do, which was to start a medical clinic. And what attracted us is there's been a lot of talk about the flavor of Clarkston. And I can't speak to the flavor of Clarkston 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but I imagine it's very different now. But what attracted us to come here to have a medical clinic is because it is a beautiful example of how many people that are very, very different have come together and have done some really, really amazing work. You know, I wish that, you know, even, local politicians, national politicians, people would come in and just see that it is possible for very, very different people to live together and to thrive. And, you know, when I think about the flavor of Clarkston, or I think about the most beautiful thing, the thing that I always tell people about when I talk about Clarkston is you've got to come to Milan Park, and you just have to watch these kids from completely different countries and ethnicities and backgrounds, and then people that are native to Clarkston. Like, watch them play together. Like, that is what heaven looks like, is when you get these kids to come and play together. And when they play together and they form relationships with one another, you know, those relationships translate, I think, to better just personal development and also just development, community development. And so, I'm not going to understate, like, I don't live right next to this development. So I realize that it is going to be impactful to people that are living really, really close. But I do know, or I think that, it is just a great opportunity to have more community space for Clarkston. And, any of the options, I would say, save option 4 would provide that. And yeah, the other thing is, being a physician, we are very, very interested in the physical health of the community. And so having just another space where we can utilize exercise classes or just teach physical fitness or things like that, I think are really, really important. And yeah, so, it's just, I think the question is what is the flavor of Clarkston? If the flavor of Clarkston is like a, I don't know, just determining what the flavor of Clarkston is. If it is, what I think it is diversity and inclusivity and all these things that we have done progressively as a city. If that is the flavor of Clarkston, I think that providing the space for kids to come and families to come and community to come, just to have a place to gather and build relationships is probably the best use of land that I can think of.
Thank you. We've got time for a couple more.
One more. Sorry. So, for a minute, forgot about the St. Philip. Like, I am a member of the Clarkston International Bible Church, and I'm also one of the leaders of Clarkston International Bible Church, and we live here. My wife, my son, we live here in the Clarkston. Clarkston International Bible Church is for Clarkston. And even then, in the future, there's the point where we feel like St. Philip is not for the Clarkston, we're going to speak against them. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I feel like as a member of this church, as a leader of this church, I think I have a right to say that Clarkston International Bible Church has been always about the Clarkston and will be always for the better of the Clarkston. And I just want you all to hear from me, as a member, as a leader of this church. And in future, if St. Philip did something where we feel like it's not for the Clarkston, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they get out of here. Thank you.
Thanks.
What he said. My name is Ed Manderson. I'm the worship pastor here. I do live in Clarkston, in Twin Oaks. And so I've been here about a year and a half, and I do love the flavor of Clarkston. I do love the atmosphere. I do love the community feel. And honestly, I've never seen an organization bend over backwards, seriously, as much as the North American Mission Board and these guys at MGA have. I understand, I can look at it from some of the close neighbors' viewpoint as far as, oh my gosh, there's a gym in my front yard, that kind of thing, okay? But what I would like you to look at it is from a bigger lens, from a community lens, instead of this is what I want lens. Okay, I want you to see what this could do for this community. Because you're talking about crime, you're talking about kids not having anything to do. Well, that's what they're trying to offer. They're trying to offer a place for community to happen. And I feel like there's a few people standing in the way of that because they have a narrow-minded viewpoint. And you can ask anybody on staff here, I'm kind of a blunt person. I love you in the Lord, but I'm just being blunt. Okay? I want you to look at it from a community standpoint and not a narrow-minded, this is what I want, or this is how it's impacting me, because you know what? It's going to impact generations long after you're gone. Thanks.
Thanks. One more.
Very quick. One of my concerns is that trust is the most important thing. And so this project has not been a trusting project for the community, the way that it's come about. I think that you guys have a wonderful plan of what you're trying to do, and I think it's a great plan. But show the community everything that you were talking about with building that existing piece so that we have a sense of trust with you. Because think about how this all emerged. And that's why you get some of the resistance that you're getting from the community. Because for me, as a health person, I know the importance of having parks, and I know the importance of having opportunities for kids. But you also have to look at something from how this relationship has been built on shaky ground. And so I'm asking you, because I know what's important for our community, again, is for our kids to have an opportunity to play, a place to be safe. But the other piece that I'm really wanting you to do is to show the community that everything that you've said that you want to do with the existing project that you've already had approved, let the community see the value of what you're doing. Because I think you won't get as much resistance. And why you've seen some resistance is that in conversations, this never came up. It started off on shaky ground. And so, as you know, with any relationship, if things start off on a shaky ground and you don't show that this is, I mean what I say, I'm doing what I'm going to do, you're going to get that resistance. And so I think whatever option you pick, if you pick something where it's with the community in terms of having the soccer fields, or if you do something with the houses, the best thing that you can do is show how you've already got that piece approved, how you're going to show that you're going to be invested in the community with what you have. Because it's going to take time for you to develop that piece and work on that piece. But I think from a relationship, that's why you're getting sometimes that resistance, because again, this just popped up. You got approved for this piece. People asked you, what were you going to do with the two houses? We didn't get clear direction on that. And then all of a sudden, we're going to put the soccer fields and everything else. So the concern is trust. I'm not saying what you're wanting to do is a bad thing. I'm not saying that putting in soccer fields would not be beneficial. But from a relationship perspective, you want to be in the community, you want the community to utilize your services. I just want you to think about how would you feel if you didn't have a good relationship, conversation about how things were going to be set up. What would you think? And keep that in mind in terms of the resistance sometimes that you're getting from the community. So I'm not disagreeing with making the best usage of the land, but making the best usage of your relationship. Because this is about relationships. How you work and engage with the community is very important. So if the community is not seeing that you're being a good steward in terms of, we got this property, we're going to show you how we're going to benefit the community with what we've already gotten approved, that's kind of where you see that resistance. And that's the only thing that I'm trying to say. I think soccer fields are great. I think any way to get kids and our seniors and whomever else out active, that's wonderful too. But make sure as you're going through this entire process that you understand this is still on a rocky relationship. And really it's a show and prove type of relationship that we need with you to show that you mean what you say, you're going to do what you're going to do, and you're going to work with the community. So that's all I'm asking.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, you're the last one. So.
I'll be real fast, what I want to say. I have lived in Clarkston for 50 years. I live on Rogers Street, right across the Norman Road. This church has been a tremendous asset to this community. And the houses, if you're talking about property values, these houses on the end of Rogers Street all have gone on the market, sold within 3 weeks at a tremendous price. and the people knowing that this was coming. So that's all I want to say.
Okay. Well, you are quick. Well, thank you all. We are at 7:30, so we wanted to abruptly end and honor your time. And thank you for coming here. Thank you for how this evening is going. We think it is very good. I think open and honest feedback. And we didn't have to have anybody escorted out, which is always great. So anyway, thank you very much. And you are free to go. We'll be around if there's any other questions.